good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We are in our 2024 AIHEC Health Webinar Series. So thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We are really excited to welcome Dr. Damion Killsback. I want to formally and officially welcome Dr. Damion Killsback. Dr. Killsback received his Doctor of Pharmacy degrees from the University of Montana, located in Missoula, Montana in 2022, as the first pharmacist from the Northern Cheyenne Nation. He earned a master's degree in public health from American Public University in Charlestown, West Virginia. We've got some more people joining us. And he was, that was in 2014, and he was Summa Cum Laude. He has over 20 years of experience in clinical pharmacy, public health and administration, and work dedicated to American Indian, Alaska Native healthcare and public health issues. Dr. Killsback joins the CDC's Public Health Infrastructure Centers as the new director of the Office of Tribal Affairs and Strategic Alliances. He returns to CDC with a strong background and experience in tribal affairs, executive leadership, healthcare management, and multi-service program management. Most recently, Dr. Killsback served as the Chief Executive Officer for the Northern Cheyenne Service Unit. Dr. Killsback was previously employed with the Office of Minority Health, where he served as the Acting Director for the Division of Policy and Data, in addition to the American Indian Alaska Native Policy Lead. He later became the Senior Advisor for Tribal Affairs and was designated as the lead of the Tribal Affairs team to establish the Center for Indigenous Innovation and Health Equity Tribal Advisory Committee, and served as Office of Minority Health's Tribal Liaison on all tribal affairs activities, including the HHS's Secretary's Tribal Advisory Group. He is the co-author for the Community Health Aid Program Readiness Assessment Project in partnership with the Indian Health Services Community Health Aid Program. Prior to joining OMH, he served as the Deputy Director for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Office of Tribal Affairs and Strategic Alliances. As Deputy Director, he served as the CDC's Tribal Advisory Committee's Co-Executive Secretary, responsible for, we've got another person coming in who's blocking my reading, responsible for the organization and oversight of biannual CDC TAC meetings, as well as tribal consultation. Before his role with CDC, Dr. Killsback served as the Indian Health Service pharmacist and health professionals recruiter, responsible for national recruitment and retention initiatives and strategies for IHS and the Liaison, administrative official for the Uniformed Services University of Health Sciences Medical Officer Training Program. Dr. Killsback makes his home near his Northern Cheyenne community as a proud member of the Northern Cheyenne Nation and a direct descendant of Chief Dolknife. He is the oldest of 6, son of Jacqueline Limpy Tang. He is married to his beautiful wife and partner, Damion Killsback, and they have 4 children. So a huge thank you and a huge welcome to Dr. Damion Killsback. And now I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Maggie. So Peve Shiv Guts na Hasheseve na Vopma Medana na Esta na Sista Nasota. So as customary of Northern Cheyennes, we introduce ourselves in our my Cheyenne language, my name, community I grew up from. I'm from White River District in Busby, Montana. As Maggie mentioned earlier, I'm a direct descendant from Chief Dolknife. So that lays kind of the groundwork for a lot of the things that I'm doing currently around American Indian, Alaska Native issues, public health and clinical in the government sector. So I guess we can go to the slides right now. We can start. I know she already mentioned my credentials and all that. The next, there's only going to be a brief amount of slides on this presentation because I really want to make sure I share the content of this presentation. So the next slide, please. So the background. So the background of my personal background. Maggie presented just a summary of like a brief summary of my accomplishments, mostly academically, to my career path. But I think it goes a little bit for a lot of folks that are on the call that are from have a background of coming from an indigenous community, especially from the United, in the United States, the lower 48, Alaska. Our stories go a lot deeper than that, so this picture here in my background is what we call is Bear Butte State Park in South Dakota. It's a ceremonial place for Northern Cheyenne tribal folks. It's a traditional. This is where our creation story comes out of, Bear Butte, and the buffalo, of course, is kind of is the symbol of the Plains tribes, because it provided everything for all the tribes in the Plains area, where there's food, shelter, even during our ceremonies. I won't speak too much about the ceremonies, but the significance of the buffalo and the bison, what it means to our people. So Noah Wuss is what the name of that, the Cheyenne and name of Bear Butte. It's the holy mountain for the Northern Cheyenne people. Our creation stories, we got our there's a story called The Great Race, where there's a race around the mountain to determine who would have domain over the animals on Earth, between the Cheyennes, I guess in this case the humans, and the four-legged. So the four-legged and the two-legged, that was the story that I was told, and I told my children about how humans became domain over the animals, and the earth itself, the stewards. So that kind of goes, that's the most, I guess, the most primitive way to look at how, someone's purpose and commitment would come about as a Native American, is a steward and a protector of Mother Earth, and all the animals, and our fellow tribesmen, and our fellow human beings. So that's the background that I want to make sure I communicated on this presentation, because the next I guess the next slide I wanted to talk about, when I talk about identity and purpose, there's a picture there. So building from that foundation, you could see here on before horses came to the United States, or to the current United States, North America, indigenous populations had to have creative, innovative ways to get sustenance. Like in this case, you're looking at a depiction of, warriors with coyote pelts on their back, and they had to crawl around and mimic coyotes, and to get close enough to harvest buffalo. So those are some of the things that are kind of reflective today of how innovative we have to be as people to survive and to thrive, and to have that identity. It's like, and to the right is Chief Don Aide, Morning Star, my great grandfather. So that is the whole purpose of being, is to be in unity, and to be in harmony with the animals and the earth, and with other people. So that's kind of what the driving in my thesis for my master's program. I making sure I gave credit and to the history of our of my tribe, and my historical lineage, my ancestors. So as I get through the presentation, I'm going to try to tie all these things, all these elements together. So it definitely ties together. So bear with me. So the next slide comes down to, as we know, with westward expansion and colonization of the United States. This is a photo that I think a lot of people can probably identify with, and know that these are all buffalo skulls. During westward expansion and in the Plains Indian Wars, the U.S. government did try to do its best to try to eradicate the indigenous peoples, and this is a reflection of that. They understood the importance of buffalo and bison to the Plains tribes, not just to the Northern Cheyenne, but to all the tribes, that were, part of the Great Plains, and that made the United States its domain. And by doing so, by getting rid of the food source and the importance of the buffalo, it really impacted tribes. And there's land that were overlapping, where we had to form alliances with other nations. The Cheyenne became really good, close allies of like the Kotas, the Arapahoes, and that will come up later. When we talk about strength and resilience, you have to form those alliances, and that will lead to like the story coming forward. Like, how do we tie all these things together? Our background, our history, where we come from, our identity, our strength and resilience. These are all foundational as for me anyway, and I think a lot of folks that come from a tribal background, and how it helps reaffirm their personal missions and their commitments to pursue education, to pursue work in the private sector or the federal sector. So those are things that will add to that. But because we don't remember, we don't forget, but we remember where we come from. We remember why we're here. So the next slide is going to kind of tie all these elements together. So commitment is based on self-awareness and self-discipline. So self-awareness comes with we know who you are. Where do you come from? What's your story? How are you going to get to where you need to be? Where do you want to go? So those three elements of a breakthrough, like how people become find their purpose in life, is these three elements: their state of mind, their personal story, and the strategy going forward. How are you going to attain these things? So working backwards, the strategy is kind of like why I'm here today to talk through AIHEC. The strategy is through formal education. We have three educations that we get in our lives. The three teachers are going to be first, from our personal experiences, growing up, being born, your environment, where you go to school, the people you interact with on a daily. The second education is going to be from your family, your parental structure. They're the ones going to kind of teach you the values, the moral values of what's right, what's wrong. And in this case, like your historical story of your family lineage. Maybe you're descended from a chief, maybe you're descended from a warrior, maybe you're descended from a mixture of backgrounds. Like myself, I am Northern Cheyenne, but I also have Chinese ancestry as well. The story of my father, how he came to America, is something that not a lot of people are aware of. He had to come through a lot in his life, a lot of struggle, personal. He was persecuted and was in prison when communist China took over the mainland of China. So he had his own story. That's part of my unique genetic makeup, and aids and reaffirms and crystallizes my purpose. Is like to serve the underserved, to serve, in this case, our American and Alaska Native people. So that's the story in this, and then the last one is the state. Our state of mind, is knowing who you are, is their experiences define your struggles. I think some of us as students, some of you today who are still students, still go through those struggles internally, and then just waking up to go to school every day, being away from your home community, understanding that, having that understanding that a lot of things you're going through are temporary. That's the hard lesson, is these struggles that you're going through as an individual, is that a lot of things that you're going through, a lot of the hardships are temporary, especially if you're young and if you're going through education. The rigor of a curriculum can be really taxing on you mentally, even physiologically. You may have some, chronic conditions that may, because of your risk factors. As Native Americans, like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, those types of things. You have more risk because of your genetic makeup, because of being American and Alaska Native, because of the diet you were exposed to when colonization occurred. You're no longer, sustaining on traditional foods. So you're getting all these processed foods, all these things that are foreign to us, not to even mention alcohol and how alcohol permeated our populations, because it's foreign substance to us. We didn't know how to handle it. We didn't know how to deal with it the way Europeans did. So those types of things aid to our state of mind. How do we overcome all these things? Because we look at the world through our own lens, right? Our own perspective. But also the other thing that we need to look at is through the perception of how the world really is. And to gain that is through experience. And that's how we shape our state of mind. And that's going to carry us through how we attain our strategy. It's going to help develop our story furthermore, because our struggles help us, but what we were born into and situations we can't control, it doesn't really define us. What defines us how we react to situations, how we react to things that occur, or challenges. So the thing I also think I wanted to focus on or discuss is these three items that I talked about. The educational piece. Your education comes from your family, from your experiences, and your formal education. The last one is how you strategize. How am I become successful? What do I want to do with my education? What type of education am I pursuing? Is it do I want to get undergraduate? Do I want to go to a master's program, a doctorate program? And then what am I going to do to obtain that type of training? So there's all those things are kind of tied to your purpose and commitment, because people change majors all the time, right? Like when you go to undergraduate, I was very fortunate because I changed my major, well, at least my state of mind. I felt like, well, I didn't want to become a doctor because I knew how long it would take to go through medical school and get residency. It's like, what's the next thing I could do that could get me out the door right quickly? So pharmacy was the next best thing I could think of. Was like, I'm not going to be in medical school for 4 years and then another 4 years of 3 to 4 years, or I guess 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years of residency training before I actually start practicing as a physician. Those are things I thought about. So I kind of took the shortcut, as you so to speak, but I could still make an impact and wanted to be in healthcare. So education, the strategy, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be setbacks. So the things that are going to help you is your self-awareness. And that's tough when you're in your 20s and you're young. You don't really know who you are. You're still trying to figure that out. But your experiences, the more challenges, the more you're out of your comfort zone. Maybe you want to take an internship or externship that's not like in your home community. Like maybe you want to, let's say DC's offering an externship, for IHS, or maybe under the Department of Interior, or with another organization. That may be something. And the key with these experiences is that at a young age you can take a lot of risks and not have it impact you, too bad. At least, because you won't have, typically you probably won't have a family to worry about, or you don't have a commitment or obligations. You're still young. So those are things I think about, like when I'm talking to an audience that's in like an undergraduate. Is I'm making a lot of assumptions, but I know that some people aren't that aren't in that situation. Some people actually have to think like, I need to get an education so I can provide for my family. That's a lot of folks. That's certainly was my train of thought when I got into to my education. But it starts very early on, in high school and even in college, in your undergraduate years, is you have to choose carefully who you share your life with. You choose carefully who's your circle of friends, who do you befriend, who do you confide in, who do you trust, who's going to support you, who's going to be not necessarily just monetarily, but just encourage you and empower you to get through those hard times in your education. Because there's a saying that you are the reflection of the 5 closest people in your life. The 5 people you interact with the most is what defines your character. So I was very fortunate in my own personal life to have friends that I've met in college and in various career settings that definitely impact me and I take lessons from all of them. They're not necessarily pharmacists or even commissioned corps officers, but the most common thing is that they're all native or minority. You know, one of my closest friends I grew up with was in the School of Education at the University of Montana, and he's been my friend for over 20 years. You can gauge those people who are the ones that generally are good friends and people you can count on, because if you share your successes and some of the failures with them, how do they respond to you? That's how you can gauge, are these people that are quality people that I can have in my life, that I need to keep in my life. I remember when I got into pharmacy school, it was one of the hardest things I've gone through. Is at that time, one of the biggest achievements was being accepted to pharmacy school, and I wanted to tell everybody. But the one person I did tell, he was my good friend I just met, and we were friends for about maybe 6 months, maybe not that long, but he was genuinely happy for me. I had him open the letter for me. He's like, open the letter. I want you to be here when I read it, and he was happy, and that to me was like, these are the, looking back, how impactful that was to me as a struggling college student, having a lot of money and being away from home. Just that encouragement and that seeing that genuine happiness for me and achieving such a major thing in my life, and in turn, we kind of fed off each other. We didn't really study together, but I know that he was a good student because he was Dean's List and I was Dean's List for a few semesters. And when we graduated, we combined our graduation ceremony, not ceremony, but our celebration and a barbecue. Invited him over to my home res for a giveaway. He's still my friend to this day. I still reach out to him, even if I lived in DC or I was in Atlanta for a few years. I connected with him. Even now, he's very successful in his endeavors. He goes back to his home community. He's been a coach. So that's one example of an individual that's been really close to me. Another friend of mine, I met while I was in DC. He was always, had a lot of good positive things to bring to my life. He helped me acclimate to the CDC. I mean, not CDC, but DC area. Connect with the Native community there. So that's one of the things that I really appreciated with his friendship. And our families getting together and getting to know the Indian community and kind of joking around, having some commonalities about, coming from Indian communities. And I'm still in contact with that individual today. He's still a good friend of mine. And I just talked to him yesterday, as a matter of fact. I'm in regular contact with a lot of these individuals. So if you can, so just remember that look at the people around you. You have to assess yourself and where are you at? What do I need to do to get to the next level? Who do I need to surround myself with? Are these people keeping me comfortable where I need to be, or are they actually challenging me? Are they saying that are they friends? Are they folks that you can look at and say, are they telling you, are they a friend or an ally? You want friends can be an acquaintances, but allies are people that bring something to your life, that you bring to their lives as well, that you help improve their situation and they improve your situation, either help you grow and then you help them grow. They encourage you, like if things are getting tough and you're missing home, they say, hey, let's go hang out, let's go do something, or because when you talk to family, we love family. Okay, so there's another saying that I really learned, that is that not everybody that you fight is your enemy. Not everybody that helps you is your friend. So sometimes some of the impediments and some of the obstacles that you face in your life may come from people that you've grown up with, your own family. They may not be as supportive as a stranger or somebody that you just met. Whether they're tribal or not tribal. So those things to be aware of. I know that the biggest thing that I've encountered, and I've heard from Native Americans that have gone through college, Indigenous folks from different tribes, is the pull they get. They feel like they when things get hard and they need to go home, and it's understandable, to go home during a break. But if you start going home every weekend, that's tough. It's hard. It's tough to leave. It's tough to keep that state of mind, that mindset. Like, why are you here? Um, those things it's hard. It's like when you have people that say, "Okay, come home," they're making it easier for you to, to quit. You have to think about that. Is this something that's benefiting me? What I need to do? Um, when because grandma and grandpa and your mom and dad, they want to protect you. So you got to remember that. Even if you're in your 20s or 30s, they want you there. They want you because they want you to be not in pain. But you have to go through that struggle. You have to grow through that. Any type of growth is not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be true growth, into the person that you're meant to be is not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be painless. Um, those are things that you have to recognize. It's good for you because it helps you get through the next challenge. It's a stepping stone. Everything is tiered. Um, so when I talked about earlier about your friends and people that believe in you, there are people that believe in you. And you might not hear it every day, but I'm sure that you have friends and family that believe in you, but not just friends and family, but people in your respective educational path. Could be an advisor, could be a scholarship coordinator, could be a loan repayment analyst, could be these people believe in you. Maybe they saw your story, they saw your application, your narrative you wrote, and what your committed is. So just think about this. You have to be committed, because if you're not committed to what you're doing either through your education, your career pursuits, or any type of goals you're doing, whether it's it could be playing basketball. Like if you're dedicated to basketball, you have all these people believe in you, but if you're not putting in the work and you're not committed to doing that, it's an insult to those that believe in you. Okay, because you're letting them down. Not only are you letting them down, but you're letting yourself down. Like, why? That's the thing is where you have to really know yourself, be self-aware. Sometimes when you get older in life, you might need to spend some time alone. Take a sabbatical from social media, from your own family. Take a trip, maybe just a day or two. It doesn't have to be a long time, but maybe you need to meditate and reflect and say, "Who am I? What do I need to do? Where am I at in my life?" You have to be able to be comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable being by yourself, then that says a lot that you need to grow. You need to challenge yourself because you can't always be validated by somebody. You have to learn how to validate yourself. There's going to be times where you have to gamble on yourself when no one else, when no one else believes, and you have to believe in yourself. Ultimately, you have to walk in any door, any situation, and say, you know what, I know I can get through this, or I know I'm the best at this. I know this information. I know I can get through this test. I know I can get through this curriculum. I know I can do this. I can conquer this interview because I've read the interview and I know I meet every single skill set. I can qualify for this position. That's the mentality you have to have. It's not cocky. It's not, it's just being self-confident and self-aware of where you're at. But at the same time, you have to be able to be humble, in your journey. Like, maybe I'm not where I need to be. Maybe I need to study more. Maybe I don't have to go out on a weekend and go party or go hang out with my friends. Maybe I don't have to go to that powwow and drive for the weekend. Maybe I don't have to go to that basketball game. Maybe I need to put more hours in and study. Some of those nights by yourself may be the most productive. You may start discovering yourself even more when you put the work in and you understand that you're making sacrifices. So those are things that aid to your story and also your state of mind, and also will help you strategize to pick the right fit, to choose the right strategy as you have a breakthrough in your life, right? Maybe you're not cut out. Maybe you're in your first semester of pre-med and you're like, I hate chemistry. I can't stand chemistry. I can't understand the concepts. So knowing that before, instead of trying to force yourself into something that you're not going to grasp, or it's not part of who you are, it's part of self-awareness. It's part of self understanding that who you are. is like, I don't understand. I'm not going to ever get this because I'm not passionate about it. I don't care about it. So changing your major early on is probably the best thing. It happens, but I have two kids that are college educated, and that's happened to them. They had to reflect and look at themselves and say, is this really what I want to do? I'm going to see chemistry every year, every semester for the next 4 years. So I have to get used to it, or I have to like it. If I know I don't, I'm never going to like it, then I need to look at something else. So having that self-awareness is something that is something you have to learn. It's really hard to learn, especially when you have a lot of people telling you, they're hyping you up. They would believe in you. Okay, you can get through this. So there's that fine line. Like, do I believe the hype, or is it all hype, or is it something that I really am good at, or that I know I have potential that I need to feed? I need to be disciplined enough to commit to the work that needs to be done. So it just doesn't, this just isn't through the academic side of things, but it's also through life, through your careers, anything you pursue. You have to put commitment into that. If you want to have a small business, if you want to be a world-class, grass dancer or fancy dancer or chicken dancer or whatever on the palace circuit, you got to put in the work. You just can't go out there and assume you're gonna, be the best dancer. You gotta do a lot of the work after hours, put in the effort and the time. So the other thing is we're talking about our state of mind, our story, and our strategy, but also there's growth to that. Your experiences through life are gonna change you. You should welcome the change. It's gonna help you grow. If you're not growing and not trying to educate yourself or learn something new every day, or every year try something different, then you're not going to fulfill your purposes. You don't know maybe if you don't know your purpose now, maybe that'll help you reveal that. So mastery of any one subject, it's going to take you at least 11,000 hours, which is about, between 6 and 7 years. So that's kind of like been studied. It's like the amount of time you put in to master something, and then move on to the next thing, or you become the expert. So it takes about that amount of time. And doing so, you got to there's 5 people that influence you, right? But you have to find mentors, good mentors in your life to help you along the way. Those 5 people are always going to be there, have your back, encourage you. But mentors are going to help you kind of open up your mind to like what your possibilities are with your skill set, with your education. Like, they're going to help you gauge, like, is now a good time to be a part of this organization? Is now a good time to get into government, or is now a good time to look at becoming potentially a tribal leader? Maybe if you guys are in that realm, become an authority in public health or tribal health, or someone who could support the government of a tribe. Those are things that they help if you have a good mentor, because all your decisions are either based on experiences or experiences from shared from people that you trust, that are either your mentors or people that are in your circle of 5, people that understand you and know who you are. They know your personality. The biggest thing is sometimes we tend to be surrounded by people that are a bunch of yes men and yes women that tell us what we want to hear. But the people that really care about you, really want you to succeed, are going to tell you some of the things that you might not want to hear, like in a situation, like, oh, you need to work on this, Damion. Maybe you need to work on time management, or maybe you need to work on spending more time, taking notes and strategies like that, and maybe leadership development, or learn how to be more empathetic when you're speaking to people. Those are things that the feedback you need to hear as you progress in your life, is to get that. Are you receptive to that? Are you receptive to criticism? Are you receptive to feedback? Because it should really start with the family. First of all, your family's going to always criticize you. I don't care who you are, especially if you're a native. Your biggest critics are going to be your family members. They're going to be your mom, your brothers, your sisters, maybe even your own kids or your spouse or whatever. But your family members are always going to be they're always going to be there to tell you what you need to do or what you're doing wrong, and that's fine. That's how it is. You have to be okay with that. But then you got to glean, like, which advice should I take? And then there's going to be people that you trust, right? how solid those relationships are is going to determine what type of information you get from them and how impactful it's going to be on your life. So those are the things. It's like, make sure you have good people in your life that you trust, quality people. And there's people that may be positive all the time. That's good. You need positivity, but then there's such a thing as a toxic trait of negativity. There's also toxic positivity too. Like, always look on the bright side of things, because it really is devoid of any type of empathy. When someone is always positive, they just glean over like the human condition or emotions and say, always look on the bright side. No matter what tragic thing may happen, that's toxic. Not to acknowledge that there's some tragedy or some, even you see that in academia sometimes when they study American Indian and Alaska Native people, is the impact of colonization and historical traumas, boarding schools, those type of impacts it has on our contemporary existence as Native people. We're losing our languages. But a toxic positive, researcher might say, "Oh, just get over it. Just reinvigorate your language. Just get to the elders and have them teach people." I was like, "Well, you don't understand. There's a different dynamic to that. There's all kinds of things that play into that. A lot of our elders have gone through the boarding school system, and it was the languages beat out of them. Some of them have suffered a lot. They've seen some of their family members die because of boarding schools. So when you open up that discussion about reinvigorating language, there's a lot of trauma response associated with that. You're like, I remember my last word in Cheyenne was this, or my last word in Cherokee was this, was when I was pulled away from my family. Or, when I said, this word, I was thrown in the basement, of the dormitory and in the dark for a few days. So those are things that people are really aware of when they have this toxic positivity, especially like if it comes from this place of kind of paternalistic in nature. They can't really identify or have that cultural sensitivity to recognize things like that. So those are things that I think mainstream, society, Indigenous people in this country, AINs are less than 1% of the U.S. population. So it's hard. We have to continue to educate and re-educate folks on how to interact and educate and deal with Indigenous population. That's part of my job I'm doing right now. I just got off a meeting about one of the CDC agencies wanted to stand up a public help a tribe stand up a public health department. And so I'm glad I was part of those conversations, but that's part of my job, is to help with those nuances and talking about how to be culturally sensitive and how to interact. How to empower folks, not to come across as paternalistic, or misogynistic or what have you. So, I'm kind of getting close to wrapping up my presentation. But the things I wanted to leave with is that the things that will get you the most successful parts of my life have been tied to two things. Not just my background, but like things I can control. There are a lot of things out of your control as an individual, but things you can control for sure that will impact the quality of your life, your work, and the quality of the people around you will be, first of all, your attitude. How you treat people. Even your approach, your self-awareness, humbling yourself. Your attitude and how you treat people and your approach to life is going to be one of the biggest determinants in how the quality of your life will be fulfilled, believe me. The second thing is empathy, to practice that every day. Because it's the basis of effective leadership in any type of position where you can impact those around you. In this case, American Indians and Alaska Native populations, is empathy. Seeing things through their lens, not your own perceptions. I think that's where a lot of folks get in trouble with is they have this like, oh, I know what they mean. I know what they're talking about because, there's 574 federally recognized tribes, but I bring one perspective as a Northern Cheyenne. That's it. I don't know what, a small tribe in the Great Lakes region is, what their needs are, what their experiences are. I don't know what the Alaska villages experience, because there's, I don't know what, in the Eastern Branch of Cherokee's experience. I don't know what, the Oklahoma tribe experience. I just have my perspective, but I can glean from that. I can learn from that. So having that empathetic lens, because we don't know everything, but it's good to get those experiences to help aid in our decisions, but to be diplomatic and be empathetic. So those are things that I wanted to make sure I communicated today, is that the two most impactful things that I've learned is my attitude towards life, and also the empathy we practice with each other. Suffice it to say, I'm very blessed, in my life to accomplish what I've had, to be where I'm at, to be in the position I'm in, and also to be able to speak to all of you and to be asked. Thank you, Maggie, and I think Reno Shrek connected us, so I appreciate that. That is, it's a blessing, and I really appreciate the time, and I hope that everyone learned a little bit about me today, and have, you guys can reach out to me if you have any questions or any follow-up. AIHEC, I'll be more than happy to continue our relationship on a personal, even from a personal level, and I can connect you with some other folks in my network. But I appreciate the time. I know it's a quarter till. I want to leave time for questions and answers, so I think I ended just on time. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Killsback, for that presentation. That was wonderful, and we are so appreciative. And I did, speaking of Reno, she had a appointment got switched on her, but she did want to pass along that she was really looking forward to your presentation, and she will certainly watch the recording. So I do want to take some time now. If anyone has any questions, and I'm gonna just look through the chat here really quick. But please feel free to unmute yourselves, and if you want, if you feel comfortable, you can take yourself or put yourself on camera maybe, for any questions that you might have. And if we don't have any right now, I have a question. Dr. Killsback, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to how you overcame, and probably more in your educational journey, but how you overcame the urge to go home, and instead kind of face the discomfort that you might experience, gambling on yourself. And how do you do that while still maintaining a connection to your community and to your native background?
Well, thank you for that question. So like the biggest thing, especially when you first go to college and you're so far away. I mean, I did go to school at University of Montana, and it was about, even though it's in the same state, it was like almost 500 miles from where I grew up, where I'm from. So it literally take, half a day just to drive that distance. So I couldn't go home every weekend, obviously. But the things that was very helpful to me was just finding a community in Missoula. Like I said, one of my friends I met, we hung out a lot. We played basketball. We didn't really study together because he was in a different, major program than I was. But on the weekends and after, in the evenings, we'd play basketball, hang out, go out, we help with the local Indian club, get involved that way, put yourself out there. So one of the biggest things I know about natives is the confidence level. It just isn't there, right? We're so insecure sometimes when we leave our tribal community because we don't know anybody. But the good thing is, like, when you go to a college campus, is they don't know you either. You don't know them. So it's a good way to kind of put yourself out there to gain that confidence. Like, oh, these guys don't know who I am really, or I don't know who them. So it's a good way for us to start establishing these friendships and relationships with folks in a healthy way. It's not based off of like, oh, I know your family or your family knows mine, or it's not So that's one of the things that I think helped me is just like you're kind of forced to put yourself out there if you want to have some type of social structure there. And they had an Indian club there, so that was a good venue. I think most college campuses across the country have an Indian club or some type of small community of natives that go to school there. And there's always, there's right now with technology, there's these virtual, ways to connect with people through social media. Organizations like AIHEC can help, kind of foster those and establish those types of channels so people can connect across the country, so that those are things that helped me when I was away. But yeah, it was tough, in your family, when you get home and you want to stay and they say, oh, you can stay. But then, man, when I was in pre-pharmacy, there was like 9 of us and there was like 6 or 7 other natives I was in pre-pharmacy with. And then I was the only one that lasted the first, the first year. I didn't see them. They all went back home and it doesn't say they were capable, they weren't smart. I mean, it's just that whole dynamic. They're not, we don't really prepare ourselves for that, to get thrown into um being kind of isolated from our tribal home, our communities, and having to make friends and having to have responsibilities as an adult when you're only 18, 19 years old, never having to go through all those things. So it's unfortunate because there's a lot of capable people out there that are intelligent enough to go through, an educational curriculum, but it's the other side of things that people don't understand is just education, like I said, the education of life and experiences, most of your life is going to be lived based on off of your experiences in life. That's your biggest education, right? And that's the hard part for young people because all they know is their formal education and then their education from their household. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And then I guess kind of just working off of that, do you, did you find that you were often able to find those Native communities that schools do offer? They have, clubs or what have you,
Mhm.
or ways to connect with each other.
Yeah, yeah, I think especially like I think bigger universities and even the smaller ones, I mean, it's not a secret that there's native in this country now. I think they're at least aware of it, and I think pretty much, I can't, I mean, maybe you guys at AHEC have more of a beat on that or more of a pulse on what specific programs are out there for kids that are Native American that are looking for outreach for support. Um, but certainly, I think the biggest thing is like the first thing I look for is like if there's a Native American Studies program, I'm going to that building because I want to see another native. I want to see. It's like, oh, is there another Cheyenne here? Oh, but then of course in Missoula there's a lot of Blackfeet and there's a lot of Flathead because they're all from there and Washington tribes. So that was one of the things I thought. I was like, okay, just kind of using my brain is like, okay, if I want to see another native somewhere, where am I going to go? Is there a powwow? Is there an Indian club? Is there is there a Native American Studies program? There's got to be natives there, right? If they have one, I mean, it makes sense. So that's kind of like, and granted, I never took an NAS. One of the biggest things I really regret was I wasn't able to take a Native American Studies class, because my curriculum was so rigorous. I couldn't really add on like Native American Studies class as an elective. Even in my pre-pharmacy days, I couldn't really do an elective outside of my core curriculum. So but I still connected with them, and I helped with some of the things. But there's got to, yeah, I think you guys might have a better, I guess, um, pulse on what the resources out there for colleges and universities for Native American students to connect and find a community on campus.
Well, wonderful. And we know certainly about the tribal colleges, but it does get a little easier for us once you get to kind of the mainstream institutions about what exactly is there out there for potentially Native students or TCU students as they transition into those other institutions. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for those answers. So we do have just a few more minutes. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, certainly feel free if something does come up in the last few minutes, you can unmute yourself or pop something into the chat. I do want to take just a minute here to drop the QR link for our evaluation into the chat. As mentioned, if you have a few minutes now, you can go ahead and pull that evaluation up. And I will, however, send out a follow-up email with that link and the QR code. And this will be specifically on Dr. Killsback presentation today, and it does help us understand if we are doing the right things and providing the right content. So with that, I do want to thank Dr. Killsback. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Your presentation today was very informative, and I think a lot of TCU students in particular are going to find that it resonates with them, knowing that there may be challenges that they have to face, but to persevere, to surround themselves with good people, and they can, if they're willing to work hard and continue forward, that they can really excel in their education and their career journeys. If we do have questions afterwards, can we connect people with you, Dr.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And we did, I don't know if you are seeing
Oh
the,
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah.
Thanks, Priscilla. The
And
Priscilla shout out there. Yeah. Thank you, Priscilla.
yeah. The comment is, Dr. Killsback is a great leader that I was honored to work with. He really has his heart with the Native people and does outstanding work in Indian country. I've enjoyed his webinar today. Dr. Killsback is a role model for all tribal students who are looking for guidance. We are glad to know that we can connect people with you. If anyone has questions, you can of course reach out to me. My name or my email is on the advertisement material. So again, Dr. Killsback, thank you so much for being here. And to everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to see you all back at another one of our AIHEC Health webinars.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All righty. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.